Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us live and for replays and for sharing your great insights that are leading to really juicy discussions and conversations in between our impossible lives. I appreciate you and thank you for your time. I want to thank you for joining us today. And if we haven't had a chance already, please feel free to introduce yourself in the comments or on replays. Let us know that you're here. Let us know people you'd love to meet, who you're looking for introductions to, and let us know who you are and where you're joining us from. I'm a virtual toast girl and back on a cool health kick. So, coconut water in the glass today. This toast is for you. Today's topic is networking generations. And when I first was thinking about the topic, I was cognizant of the fact that it's a national holiday in the US and that Canada Day was the previous week. And it's really been a season of celebrations and of celebrations of life. At the same time, we're networking in places and spaces that are occasionally a little bit complex. I am so grateful that, hey, Stephen Farber, welcome. Stephen would love to meet anyone looking to improve talent development. And one of Stephen's great posts will lead to one of our topics today. So thank you again, Stephen. Thanks for popping in. And we have to find a day for that live on Recognition Styles. So Stephen is an amazing entrepreneur who helps HR professionals and others improve their talent development. So check him out when you can. And hey, Chris, cheers from sunny South Florida, sitting outside by the water. Enjoy and have a beautiful day, Chris, and enjoy holiday celebrations. And Catherine Lee, welcome back, amazing Catherine, who's joining us from Nebraska. And thank you, Catherine, for lending amazing steam to be visible flight patterns these days. Greatly appreciate you all. In the process of today's conversation, which really is about networking, and this started from our discussions about when we're networking live and we're networking virtually and the combination. So kind of a hybrid mix. And what are some of the things and the patterns that really we've been observing as we're out and about? And generations, I thought of from the perspective of we were talking about intersections and intersectionalities, where we all meet, and a great conversation in on Clubhouse in Thought Leadership Branding Club about sage leadership that was moderated by Angie Alexander and Bobby Umar was on sage leadership. It was a diversity conversation. I was delighted to be there. And I had already picked this topic for today and met an amazing woman by the name of Jackie Robinson. And Jackie has a podcast that I haven't had a chance to check out yet. So we should all check it out together. Her podcast is called Trip of Change. And it's generation to generation conversations on topics that can change the world. And in that thought leadership branding clubhouse room, that probably has a really cool replay if you're looking for something to kind of change your thoughts a little bit. We talked a bit about the intersections, about the places where we met. And in the process of thinking about it for the topics for today, was thinking about it in terms of when we're networking, about our attention, about the music that we listen to, whether it's before the networking event or to help the introvert get out of the car and emerge as a trained ambivert, or that the extrovert just always has on speed play, or the music that you hear during a networking event and about the energies that we bring to those events and about the flow. And thanks again, Steve, for helping me add a style to the list about our styles, about our communication styles, about our energy styles, about our leadership styles, personality styles, recognition styles. And really, let's think about adding our collaboration styles to that mix. It can really get complex because we're coming from so many different places and we're of so many different ages, of so many different cultures. It really can be challenging to start a conversation at a networking event, to walk into one, to join a conversation. Really appreciative of conversation that I had with Carla Sellers. Uh, Carla's helping me with my videos for I'm Possible Live. Thank you again, Carla. And Carla and I were having a conversation because we're working on a video that's taken us a while to kind of really talk about. It's, an idea I had about something from the Addams family because networking reminded me of that when I went back to my first live event last year after taking a really long break. And I think of it now as it took me from last July to December to this May to go to another live event. And I'd been to thousands of them. So we're working on this Addams Family video, and it'll come out sometime this summer. And I was thinking about it from the perspective of who we trying to reach, which is the same way you go to a networking event. You have a business card or you have a fly, or you're just looking to meet a collaborator or somebody who'll answer your call or just answer an email or come to your event or visit your website or come to your webinar or presentation or accept a call from a team member who's helping you follow up. It can really get complex. And in the process of thinking about it, I started working with Carla on this video. And I shared it with a couple of strategic alliances. And one of them said to me, Mel, people in this video, when you're not talking, they're really pretty young. Are you trying to reach a younger generation in your marketing? And I smiled because the person suggesting this and recommending this, they're a parent. And they're saying that the people in the video didn't necessarily look like we would necessarily hang out. It was an interesting comment and really made me think of part of maybe what helped me pick today's topics. We're trying to reach different age ranges. We don't speak the same language. We don't have the same styles or the same patterns. So I'd love to ask you, while we're having the conversation, how do you create lasting relationships across generations? Now, for many of us, when we walk in the door, there's someone to greet us at an event. They're either an employee or a volunteer for a chamber member, for a sponsor. They may be part of a team of event professionals that are running the event. Maybe they're a relative of the host. It really changes. And it really frames from the second you walk in that door at a live event what you think about the event, whether you enjoy it, whether you are encouraged to create lasting relationships across the generations. If you're at a virtual event, it can be interesting as you're reaching out. And I love it because Jackie, whose podcast I mentioned, we haven't seen each other face to face. I'm looking forward to a conversation with her and to finding a great time where we can connect on her podcast and she can come pop into an Impossible Live. But one of the things I loved about Jackie's comment in that clubhouse room was Jackie mentioned that someone told her there were 84 pronouns that could be applied to people that we meet. So in addition to the ages and the gender pronouns, and I've had a lot of conversations with people about this during and since Pride Month. And as generations are describing themselves, as we introduce ourselves, I mentioned a term to someone and they said, "Oh, you're using industry jargon." And I started laughing. To me, the sentence had no jargon in it. What they were saying to me was, I was speaking Mel's language And they were reminding me we were of different cultures, different ages, and that if they needed a translator for what I was saying, our words wouldn't get through. And it really helped me think about it recently as was looking at some posts online today and some news coverage that basically really rocked my boat after a weekend of celebrations of life for a cousin during an extended family of season of gratitude, of growth, of grief. And as we attended a birthday celebration for loved ones this weekend with amazing music from one of my members of our extended family and his family. And it was just a really cool celebration of life. And today, preparing to go live, I turned on the news and it reminded me we really are taking it in so differently and we're expressing it so differently. And just like this gentleman mentioned to me, and this was during a recent LinkedIn challenge, that my language sounded like jargon to him. And it's a real reminder as we're speaking to different generations, we need to frame whether comments historical, it's based on a business mission, it's based on business values, it's based on vision or pillars, for lack of a better word, and a real reminder to kind of really check out that lens that we're looking through because our language, our relationships, our businesses are kind of depending on it. And if we're working for someone in maybe my first job was in a family business and it was a complex structure with multiple offices, with multiple locations. I remember being hired and being really grateful. It's the first job out of college. And it was a really uncomfortable working environment. And I remember my supervisor saying to me, when you see so and so, or so and so, or so and so, make sure you are really careful about what you say. And it reminds me as an employee, you're kidding. You're absolutely kidding because this wasn't in a college textbook. It wasn't in anyone's definition or diary. No one talked about this in terms of employee relationships. No one talked about it in terms of scripts or how to practice. And I think one of the cool parts is that it really reminded me the need for caution. I learned it as an employee. We carry that sometimes into the networking roles or situations we're in. I have had friends over the years say, "Hey, Mel, you're politically correct." And I laughed because I wasn't. But I remembered as an employee, you really learned the words of warning from someone who was on a platform or had a voice or was giving you advice or was mentoring you or was coaching you or was a colleague or is a collaborator or a neighbor. You really remember those words of warnings as you approach different settings. I'm really excited because my godfather, Phil, my PQ godfather, as many of you will know him shortly and see more of him, is asking me, are we live now? And it's a reminder different generations, we support each other differently. We're paying attention to different messages, whether we're communicating in a direct message, in a text, on a phone call, on an email, on WhatsApp, on Slack. I really appreciate that we're having these conversations and please keep them coming. It's a real reminder as we do that we're coming from so many different angles, so many different intersections. And one of the interesting parts of that is that just like this great podcast that we're going to all check out, which is Trip of Change, is that these generation conversations are complicated sometimes by our different cultures that we're coming from, whether it's local, whether it's regional, whether it's national, whether it's global, and creating those relationships across generations takes some care. Unless you're the person who met somebody in a golf foursome, unless a mentor or a coach opened the door to introduce you to somebody. Today, I was delighted to introduce two people from very different parts of the world. One is an author I have been following, and I thank you very much, Trey Lodeholt, who is writing words that are really inspiring me during the season of gratitude, grief, and growth. Trey's words are just really jumping out at me on days when I had to be reminded today we were going live. And as some would say, wasn't necessarily feeling what others think I radiate, which is toxic positivity. So not always. And I thank you, Catherine. One big thing is listening to and being open to hearing from people across all generations. And she's so right there. And I thank my PQ godfather, Phil, who is, we have 3 hours difference in our time zone. Sometimes four, it feels like Phil, sometimes two, and the real reminder, Phil, you never miss an intersection. You're the one who helped me find the ramp, which was Kaleidoscope in Positive Intelligence and our amazing diverse pod who really helped point out the intersections. Stephen's saying it too, that there is a strategy to networking and certainly having best practices. And I thank Stephen for popping into a poll I started recently. And we're going to continue that discussion because it is strategic. It's a choice of who you sit next to. It's a choice of how we approach each other. And it's a choice of what word we use to. And I love that Stephen's saying in the process of having best practices, and really those best practices they're really critical in some of the conversations that we're having these days. Today is a national holiday, and Friday was someone else's national holiday, and tomorrow will be someone else's national holiday. As we reach out, as people are like, oh, I sent somebody a message and they didn't necessarily respond. I appreciate an amazing coach of ours who was talking about other cultures that have 12 to 20 different national holidays in a year. We need to think about that when we reach out. We're reaching out to somebody over a holiday season. They're not going to respond quickly to an email or to a text, and even the ones that we think may be time sensitive. So I really today want to continue thanking you for joining us and for sharing your time with us and sharing your energies and just sharing your really good thoughts. And really, thanks for the smiles across the miles. Really needed them today. As we continue to show up, as we continue to reemerge, as the introvert at my core is always reminded I'm a trained ambivert. And we need to continue showing up to help each other with our conversations and helping each other eliminate our isolation and helping each other just have these conversations. And Phil is jokingly saying, and probably not joking, that today reminds him of a drive last night. There were a few new roads that opened up and he missed the on-off ramps, and he now has new neuron connections as a result of the expedition last night. I am glad you are home and safe today, Phil. And thank you again, Catherine, for helping us remember to think of other cultures and other celebrations, especially when we're networking globally. I want to thank you for joining me today. And thank you for your amazing energies. If we haven't met directly yet, please pop into one of my open houses that we have monthly, or please pop into our Creating Connections to Scale Masterclass, which kicks off next week. You'll see some invitations for that shortly. It's a great place to come and pop in so we have a chance to meet face to face. And usually, I really mean it, pop in and pop out. Life happens, business happens, it all happens. And thank you again for joining us today. Toast across the miles. Bring a glass when you can. Come raise one for a virtual toast. And stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, stay in touch, and please have a magnificent day. Take great care.